What if the United States military once planned to attack its own citizens, sink its own ships, and shoot down its own planes, just to blame Cuba and start a war? This is not a movie plot. This is a real, declassified government document. And it has a name, Operation Northwoods. In March 1962, at the height of the Cold War, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the highest military leaders in the United States, sent a top-secret memo to the Secretary of Defense. The title was chilling: Justification for U.S. Military Intervention in Cuba. Inside were detailed proposals to stage violent attacks on American soil, pin them on Cuba, and use them as an excuse to invade. The plan was never approved, but the document survived, and when it was finally declassified in 1997, it changed how millions of people view their own government. Today we are going to walk through the 5 most shocking secrets hidden inside Operation Northwoods. Stick around to the end, because the last one will genuinely make your jaw drop. And if you love stories that expose the hidden side of history, hit that subscribe button right now, because we dig into a new conspiracy every single day. The document is dated March 13, 1962, and it was written by General Lyman Lemnitzer, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Its purpose was simple: create a series of pretexts, false flags, that would give President Kennedy a public reason to launch a full invasion of Cuba. The memo even borrowed a page from American history. It referenced the sinking of the USS Maine in 1898, the event that sparked the Spanish-American War, and suggested that a similar incident could be staged in Guantanamo Bay. Remember, this was the official military leadership of the most powerful nation on Earth, putting these ideas on paper in an official memo. The second secret is the plan to attack America's own military base. The memo proposed that U.S. forces could stage a fake attack on Guantanamo Bay, the American naval base in Cuba. One suggestion was to blow up an ammunition dump inside the base, set fire to an aircraft, and then blame Cuban saboteurs. Another idea was to sink a ship in the harbor and claim Cuban jets had done it. The goal was to create outrage, to make the American public demand revenge, and to hand the president a ready-made justification for war. That is not speculation. It is written in the declassified text, in black and white, for anyone to read. The third secret is possibly the most cynical. The memo proposed launching a small boat filled with Cuban refugees, people fleeing a brutal dictatorship, out into the Florida Straits, and then having a U.S. Navy ship intercept it and sink it, or even shoot at the refugees, while blaming the Cuban military. In other words, the plan was to murder innocent refugees, or make them look like victims of an attack, simply to manufacture a propaganda story. The document describes this in disturbingly clinical language, referring to the refugees as, quote, the passengers, and discussing how to make the incident look convincing. In intelligence and military planning, human lives can become pieces on a chessboard, sacrificed for what planners call the greater good. And the refugees were not the only intended victims, because the next idea was even darker. Secret number 4 is the plan to commit terrorism against American civilians on American soil. The memo suggested creating what it called a communist Cuban terror campaign in the Miami area, in other Florida cities, and even in Washington, D.C. The plan involved hiring people to pretend to be Cuban agents, detonate bombs in public places, shoot at crowds, and fire at planes landing in Miami, all while leaving fake evidence pointing to Cuba. The document even suggested using a submarine to launch a small vessel that would appear to attack a U.S. ship near Havana. Think about what this means. The Pentagon was planning to terrorize its own people, bomb its own cities, and frame a foreign country, just to justify a war that the civilian leadership had not approved. It is one of the most extreme examples of manufactured consent in modern history, and it almost sounds too insane to be true, which is exactly why the fifth secret matters so much. The final secret is the one that haunts people the most. The memo proposed shooting down an American civilian aircraft, a chartered plane, and blaming Cuba. The plan was to claim the plane was carrying college students on a goodwill trip, when in reality, the plane would be an unmanned drone, controlled remotely, with a fake passenger list of famous names, including a well-known university athlete. The idea was to trigger national grief and outrage so powerful that the public would demand an invasion. It was a plan to fabricate a national tragedy, with fake victims and fake headlines, to manipulate an entire nation into war. The author of the plan even admitted it would be necessary to cause real incidents, not just fake ones, to make the story believable. When the memo was declassified in 1997, this section went viral before viral was even a word, because it proved that the unthinkable was once on paper, in the files of the U.S. military. So, what actually happened? Operation Northwoods was rejected. Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara's office did not approve it, and President Kennedy never saw it as a viable option. General Lemnitzer was later moved out of his position as chairman of the Joint Chiefs, reassigned to command NATO forces in Europe, which many historians view as a quiet removal. And that is the honest part of this story: the system, at the highest level, said no. But the document still exists. You can read it yourself, page by page, on the National Security Archive website. And that is why Operation Northwoods remains one of the most important conspiracy documents in American history. It is not proof the government attacked its own people. But it is proof the most powerful men in the country once seriously considered it. Whether you believe the official story or not, the questions this memo raises are impossible to ignore. If you made it this far, you clearly care about the truth, so smash the like button, subscribe, and hit the bell, because we expose a shocking secret every single day. Thanks for watching, and remember, history is written by the winners, but the documents are written by everyone else.